So you mentioned that it's not a very popular sport. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think for two reasons mainly. I think first is miscommunication about what bodyboarding is, or a lack of communication previously to this point about what bodyboarding actually is. So, and that is the responsibility of the athletes. It's the responsibility of the retailers. And the second thing is, I think it's always seen, or traditionally has been seen, as less cool as stand-up surfing, which again is a total misconception. If anything, it's the reverse is true. So, and people may laugh at that as a statement, but if you think about it logically, bodyboarders have discovered some of the scariest, gnarliest, heaviest waves in the world first, before stand-up surfers. And the best example I can think of is Nazaré in Portugal, which is, the world's most famous big wave now, where, there are Guinness World Records, but that was pioneered and discovered by bodyboarders. And there are many examples of that around the world. And I think for me, we need to, particularly in the United Kingdom, and generally around the world, just get the message out there about why bodyboarding is fun and what makes it equal to surfing, stand-up surfing. And the reason is bodyboarders can surf bigger, faster, more hollow, more critical waves than stand-up surfers, just because of the physicality. So if you've got a really, really hollow wave like that, it's much easier to take off vertically on a bodyboard than it is to try and get up onto a stand-up board. And also you can fit through smaller, hollower waves lying down than you can standing up. So, and then there's the aerial side of the sport as well, which is particularly interesting to me. So I don't think the general punter, and I've said this before, I don't think the general punter really understands the level of athleticism and gymnastic capability of the top athletes. That what they do is extraordinary. To be able to do backflips and twists and all of this kind of stuff, it's a spectacle. And I think bodyboarding is young as well as a sport. So if compared to other sports have had much more time in their evolution to establish themselves. And the best example I can think of is rugby, actually, because rugby, when I was at Saracens, rugby was in the embryonic stages of professionalism. And look how it's grown since then. It's just a huge international sport these days with full stadiums at the domestic level. So I think if you communicate things and explain things to people, then I think it will become more popular, both in the United Kingdom and around the world. There are pockets where it's becoming extraordinarily popular. So the best examples would be Portugal and Chile. So the Portuguese government invests a huge amount of money into the actual sport itself, and the same in Chile. So I think, look, it's never going to be football. It's never going to be as popular as football, rugby or cricket. But I do think once people get it, I do think it could be a lot more popular than what it is right now. They call it the sleeping giant of extreme sports, and I agree with that, actually. Having spent 25 years in professional sport, I think it's a huge untapped source of entertainment.
Why do you think it's viewed as less than the stand-up surfing?
I think that it's just perception, right? Humans have really weird perceptions about lots of things. That doesn't mean that they're right or accurate. It's based, a lot of the time, perception is based on very limited information. Human beings are intrinsically wired, heuristics, aren't they? They're intrinsically wired to make snap judgments based on very limited information, and that's based on our historical need to survive. Whether that translates into making educated judgments about things that you don't really understand is a different thing entirely. And I think that applies to bodyboarding, I think people don't understand it, so therefore they make a really quick snap judgment about what it is, and particularly compared to stand-up surfing, for example. So it's about that communication. I think once people understand what it's about, what you can do, the level of athleticism and dedication required, how dangerous it is, especially compared to stand-up surfing, then I think they will respect it a lot more. I just think it's been poorly marketed, and that's bodyboarding industry responsibility. Bodyboarders have been happy to be the underground guys or the punks or whatever. And my attitude to that is grow up. You know, like if you can't complain about not getting any money from a sport being professional, and then at the same time not push it in a professional way. And that's, for me, having spent 25 years in professional sport, having grown up in a family that produces professional sport for our living, it's a really easy thing to identify that it's just not been produced very well. So yeah, that's what I believe. So I think if you produce good movies, good videos, you have good events that are produced well on television, I think that people will be surprised actually about how it could increase in popularity quite rapidly. Look at stand-up paddleboarding, for example. It came from complete obscurity to being like almost the most popular form of water sport. You know, and bodyboarding is infinitely more accessible than stand-up paddleboarding.